How's it going, guys? I'm Danny, and this week, rather than an instructional video, I've got a side-by-side comparison of a pro versus an am. Big thanks to Bobby over at Dynamic Disc for getting me footage of Eric McCabe to use as my pro, and a big shout out to my buddy Henry, who was completely cool with me pointing out all of his flaws in front of strangers. If you'd like a personalized form critique, just message me on Facebook. I'd love to help you out, and I guess I'll throw you over to the side-by-side. Alright guys, on the left is my buddy Henry, and on the right is 2010 World Champion Eric McCabe. And the first thing I'm going to talk about here is this X-step foot. You can see when Eric brings his left foot behind his right, he plants it sideways. And what this does is this keeps his hips in line with the target, and it stops his hips from turning early, which means they can come through at the correct point later in the shot and add a lot of power. Henry, on the other hand, has turned his foot around backwards, and this turns his hips all the way away from the target. This means he's setting up to be in an open stance, a very off-balance stance, and he's not going to be able to engage his lower body in the shot. This also means that he's going to have a really hard time with accuracy because he's got to turn all the way around just to throw the disc on a straight line. So that's why I always say the correct form is to plant the foot sideways on the X-step. Moving on, we've got this next freeze frame here is the plant foot and the reach back. If you look at Eric McCabe's feet, you can see he's got his front foot sideways to the target. This means he's in a balanced athletic position. He's ready to engage his hips in the throw and transfer the energy up his body into the disc. Henry has planted his foot pointing actually slightly forward at the target. This means he's in an open position. His weight is on his heels, and he's not at all in an athletic position. This means he's basically getting no power from his lower body, and so he's got to use all of his arm to throw the disc. Moving up, let's look at the hips. You can see Eric McCabe's hips are turned slightly away from the target. You can see some players turn this front foot a little bit away from the target, and this loads their hips even more for extra power. Henry, on the other hand, has planted his foot pointing towards the target, and that means his hips have already rotated back to neutral. They have nowhere left to go, and they have no way of generating power to be transferred into the disc. Moving up, let's look at the reach back. You can see Eric's reach back is straight away from his body, and it sets up a straight line all the way from the peak of the reach back to the release. Henry, on the other hand, has curled his disc around his body, which means to get the disc to the release, he's got to throw it on a curved line. This means he's going to release early, and he's not going to get any power coming out of his elbow. And lastly, you can see Eric McCabe's spine is straight up and down. This means he's twisting his shoulders rather than reaching back. The vertical spine provides a better transfer of power from his hips up into the throw. Henry, on the other hand, has leaned backwards, and this means that rather than the spine spinning, the spine is moving back and forth. And this puts a lot of extra pressure on his joints and his spine that he doesn't need. And it also means that the spine can't twist correctly, and the energy can't transfer from his hips up into his throw. So the front foot needs to be pointed away from the target, the reach back needs to be straight, and the spine needs to be vertical. Alright guys, at this spot in the throw, you can see that Eric has pulled his disc in front of his chest. Henry, on the other hand, has turned his shoulders too much to be able to do this, and the disc is in front of his left chest, almost trapped outside of his body. Also look at the hand positions real quick. Eric has got his hand on the outside of the disc. Henry isn't as bad as some people I've seen, because he's got his kind of on the front towards the outside of the disc, so it's not as bad as some people I've seen. Now this last part here is the brace. Now Henry's actually got a phenomenal brace. You can really see how he shifts his weight onto his front leg during the throw rather than throwing with his weight already above the front leg. This is one of the key parts that a lot of beginners miss. I see a lot of people when they're throwing, their weight is already over the front leg, and that means they're really not getting any power from their lower body into the shot. You can also tell Henry has a good brace because he doesn't take any extra steps forward. He can stay balanced on his right leg after his shot. This is nearly a full power shot for him. So he can stay balanced on his right leg after the shot, and that means he's transferring that energy into the disc. Alright, let's check out the follow through here, and now we'll see it all together, all playing at once. Make sure to pay attention to the X step, the reach back, the pull, and the brace. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I don't have a plan for next week's video, so I guess it'll be a surprise. So remember to subscribe so you make sure not to miss it. And until next time, remember that slow is smooth and smooth is far.